So right now we're on the border between Florida and Georgia here. I picked this up in Muncie, Indiana last week and went home for a couple of days with it on my trailer. And when I was riding, I noticed that this blade had shifted some and it was causing this edge to hang off my trailer. So when I pulled in last night, this machine, I can't get it to start. The battery's a little too weak and I need a shot of ether, which I don't carry on my truck. So I used this binder to pull the blade back where it was, and now I've chained it down because I haven't run into Florida before, but I know that there is a truck inspection station, not a weigh station, but a full inspection station when you cross in. Yeah, this doesn't have a latch. So I don't know what's gonna happen when I get there, but I wanted to make sure that when I cross that inspection, they're not gonna give me a ticket for being over width because of the blade. Might be just a little more weight on the front axle than the rear axle of the trailer too. That could be making a big difference. When I get unloaded, if I have time, I'm gonna stop at a Blue Beacon and get this whole rig washed. Well, I was going to try and use that brush over there to clean my windows. I might still do that after I get my fuel receipt uploaded. But this guy, he's using that brush to, he's taking longer to wash his windows than it took me to put fuel in my truck. That's crazy. It says agricultural inspection, but then this sign says all. So let's see what happens in this. You ready? Yeah, not just from the cylinders here for the blade blade.
This one here?
Yeah, there's some leaks up in here. I think the lift cylinders leak primarily.
Okay.
But I don't know what they told you before you bought it, so maybe they told you about that. I don't know.
And you know, they said it's been set for 5 years. You buy these things pig in the poke.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but they said it run, you know.
Oh yeah, it ran after a little bit of effort. I'll tell you, I tried to start it at the truck stop because this blade moved on its own because the packing in this cylinder must be real weak. And I tried to start it up and it wouldn't start. It turned real good, but it wouldn't start. And I didn't have a can of ether to shoot it. But when we tried to start it before, the chargeback wire for the alternator was smoking, so.
That's what you said yesterday,
Yeah, so we'll have to see what it does this time. You want to drive it or you want me to drive it?
I'll get it. Yeah, check it.
Hopefully you got it cheap enough that it don't matter.
You never know if you get them cheap enough either, huh?
Yeah.
You got a nice little trailer here.
Yeah, thanks, man. Hopefully I won't have to use it like this that long.
Well, it looks like it worked pretty good for you.
Yeah, I want to get into a regular truck though, with a step deck trailer or a lowboy.
You don't like using the Dodge?
Well, it's just hard on the truck, you know. They ain't made to do what I'm doing with them. I'm running it hard. I mean, yeah, think like I just took this from Indiana all the way down here. That's hard.
How fast do you drive?
Huh?
How fast do you drive?
About 67, 68. I'll go up to 70 if it's nice and flat or down a hill, but I won't do that coming up a hill. It'll make my EGTs too high.
And you get 11 miles a gallon?
Not this time. I was getting okay, but then I started taking off with this down here. I'll drop right down to 8 miles to the gallon.
I got a 21 Dodge.
Yeah?
You know, I think I got 5,000 miles on it. But when I hook my trailer to it, it don't give it 8 miles to the gallon.
Is it a diesel?
Okay.
You take all the emissions off it.
I may leave it on. I don't intend on driving it very much.
Right. Right.
I mean, I've had it for a year and a half and only got a little over 5,000 miles on it. You know?
How heavy are you pulling with it?
When I pull stuff like this, you know, my goose steaks, it's not this long, my goose steak's made out of expanded metal, and it's got expanded metal where you can drive up on the ramps.
Yeah.
You know, which expanded metal is harder to pull than this here.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I've never had one like that.
But I started to go up and get it myself, but again,
this one's real heavy though. You need a CDL to pull this one.
I got a CDL.
Oh, okay. Well, a lot of guys I talk to, they're like, I would have done it myself. I said, well, you get a CDL, and then most of them don't. So I just say, well, you wouldn't have been able to get away with it.
Get off up there, but you did gross out 26,000.
Oh yeah, I did.
Did you?
I'm 17. I'm almost 18 empty.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, you.
I'm way over 26.
You heavy, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I said, heck, you know, go up there and get it, you know, you get off, you get something in places, your insurance might not be right.
Right.
Your tag might not be right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I pay a lot for the insurance, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. What does the glow plug got on this side?
On the left side there, right next to the engine shut off. Yep. Now the key's a little fickle, and you gotta get that pedal right in the middle for it to start. Now that pedal to your right, you see the one? Yeah, get that so it's just right in the middle. You might, there you go.
What's the throttle doing?
The throttle's right next to that, the one with a piece of wood on it.
Oh, okay. Must not be working too good.
I think it's ether bound. I think they were spraying ether in this thing every time they started it. Because he came right out with a can of ether before he started. He didn't even try it without it.
That's what they all of do. You get them damn things hooked on that cocaine?
Yep.
They damn sure hooked.
Down here in Florida, they probably don't have that too often, but up north, when they're cold, they don't want to sit there and fight with it to start it. And they'll just start shooting at ether every time.
Cocaine. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you? I came out of Indiana. They were shooting at ether on a 90-degree day to start it, so I'll tell you, that thing's ether bound.
Once you put it to them, they do it very much. So no cocaine.
Yep.
You're addicted.
Oh yeah, this one's fully addicted, I'll tell you. When I went to go pick it up, that man came out of the place and with the can in his hand.
He knew what to do.
Yeah, he knew he wasn't gonna get it started without it.
But you damn sure. They do. I mean, you picked this up in Indiana?
Yes, sir.
Go back.
Muncie, Indiana. I was up there, I dropped off 2 big compressor tanks. They were 20 feet long each. And then this was down the street. I picked that up, brought it down here. Now he didn't take apart the breather, he just sprayed it in the bottom when he did it.
Yeah. I mean, glow plugs up just a minute. Again, okay?
Huh?
I mean, he's the glow plugs up just a minute.
He said he's gonna hold the glow plugs for a minute.
He's got glow plugs. Yeah, that shouldn't make no reason.
Okay?
Hey.
Yeah.
No, next one over.
What's this over here?
That's a direction.
Oh.
It's behind you, that shifter behind you. And when you have it in a gear, then you just push it all the way to the floor one way or the other, it'll go that fast that direction. And there, yeah, push down the clutch to put it in gear, but I think it's in gear right now.
Yeah.
This is the park and brake. Yep, you're good. Scar fire's up. Yeah, it's leaking off that lift cylinder. When I pulled it up, I had the blade just straight and rolled all the way back.
Okay, now.
That's that third one there, yep.
I think it's probably better off there than not that thing.
I mean, that's up to you if you think you'll make it over my ramps.
I think it will.
And then I just did this right here to lift it up. Yep, there you go. I think it's already in gear, but maybe not. It might be in gear. Just try pushing that pedal all the way back. It should move. Woo! What's that? Yeah, this is a 2020 model. 2022 actually, I think. What's that? Yeah, it'll be fine. That's just the way it looks. That spring helps you lift it up, off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and when you push it, see now it's pushing, so that way when you pick it up, it ain't so heavy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't pay any attention to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got springs going both directions.
Yeah. Got 3 going up and 2 coming down.
Yep. Oh yeah, it makes a big difference. I had one without springs on it before. That's heavy.
Hell. I was in the log of this. Had them damn little boys without any, even without springs on it. You grab a hold of that damn. Damn.
Well, that came off real easy. It was very difficult to get it on. We had to push it up with a rubber tire loader to get it on the trailer.
Why?
Because it don't got enough, the hydrostats are weak on it. And so when it got up on a grade like that, it just didn't have enough power to get up. Coming down, it was real easy. What are you trying to do?
Cut it off. That's the kill switch there.
Pull this plunger up. It's real hard to pull, I'll tell you now.
Push it down.
Okay. That thing's real tight too.
I noticed that.
Shut up.
Yeah.
All right, so turns out there weren't really any good loads coming back. As a matter of fact, the loads coming back were so bad that I was cheaper off to deadhead all the way home to North Carolina than I was to go a little bit out of my way to pick up a load, because I would have actually spent more in fuel, kind of breaking down all my costs and everything versus what the loads are paying. There was like only a couple of loads that paid even the minimum rate that I will work for. So just me personally, I don't take anything that doesn't pay at least $600 and isn't at least about $2.20 a mile at a minimum right now. Right now fuel is up around $5.30 a gallon, so just to give you a perspective, you know, where the fuel's at changes. But just in general, it isn't worth me even strapping it to my trailer and unstrapping unless I'm getting paid about $600 as a bare minimum. So all those loads that kind of met that criteria were all going to be way out of my way. There wasn't even any real cheap, like 80 cent a mile, just cover my fuel type loads that were en route. So to kind of divert and go out of my way, I would have spent more money on fuel. So I deadheaded back because I have a permitted load that I'm picking up. So the last part of the video you watched was Monday, and then right now it's Tuesday night. I am sitting down the street from where I'm picking up Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning is a over width permitted load. Also, this one's going from North Carolina to Florida. Another reason why I had to come back here. I didn't have a lot of flexibility on where I could go coming home out of Florida on Monday. Otherwise, I could have went like Oklahoma and kept on making money. But because I had this permitted load, which pays a lot higher, I just took last night and today off at the house, and now here I am tonight. But I wanted to cut in before the end of this video and kind of talk to you about a little situation. So I've been operating now for a couple of weeks under my own authority. I'm new to this hotshot thing, so I'm still kind of learning the ropes a little bit and getting my feet under me. And one of my earliest loads, so I had one load before this load that I'm about to tell you about, because my authority went active July 7th. I took my first load July 8th, and then I ended up kind of getting stuck, had a deadhead from there. Still made money, but it sucked that I had a deadhead. And then July 11th, that Monday, I booked a load that was picking up in Virginia Beach. It was supposed to be some signs that were going to a Taco Bell in Pennsylvania. That load was going to pay $800. It was an all right deal. And the broker for that load is a company called ZMAC, and you know, hopefully this doesn't get me in trouble for calling them out, but it's really important that you guys know the situations I'm running into, because if you get into this business, you need to know who you can trust and who you can't. But the story on that was the load was supposed to be $800. They were in a big rush to get it picked up. It was very, very time sensitive. They didn't have another carrier to pick it up yet on that Monday. It was supposed to be picked up that afternoon. So I went ahead and I booked that load, got their carrier packet all filled out, all that stuff, so on and so forth. And I rushed straight out there, and they were calling me, blowing me up the whole ride. I had to deadhead like 2 hours to pick this thing up, but the rate was okay, so it was okay to deadhead that far. But it was annoying because they knew that I was where I was deadheading from, and that I was kind of going out of my way to take the load for them. and they just kept blowing me up, and I arrive at the shipper's location. It's a factory that makes these signs, and as soon as I arrive, I tell them, hey, I'm here, I need to check in. It says on the rate confirmation that you have to check in, you have to get your time on your bill of lading. That way, if there's detention time to be paid, that's how they're gonna base that. So I get checked in, and they tell me right away, hey, we're gonna have to have you detained for quite a long time because the product's not ready. So when a broker's rushing you, you would think that that means that whatever you're picking up is ready, they need it gone now. Apparently that wasn't the case. I get there and I'm detained. I let the broker know as soon as I know. I say, hey, they're looking at detaining me at least 4 hours. And unfortunately, the detention time didn't kick in on that particular rate confirmation until I hit 4 hours. So, but I wanted to let them know so that way if they needed to make some changes, they could. So I sit there for over an hour, almost 2 hours. And the shipper comes out and says, hey, we had an issue in production. Some of the pieces got messed up, so we're gonna have to wait to ship this until no earlier than 24 hours from now, which wouldn't work for me because in this meantime, I had booked another load in Pennsylvania thinking, oh, okay, well, tomorrow I'll have this thing dropped, and then tomorrow, the next day, I'd have that dropped, and then that afternoon I could pick up my next load. You know, and that broker also was under a little bit of a time crunch, not nearly as bad, but still it was time sensitive, as most things with hot shot are. And I made commitments to other brokers, so I couldn't sit in Virginia Beach to do some layover, even if I was going to get paid, because I'd already booked another load. And I told my broker this. I said, look, I already have another load. You know, you guys rushed me out here. I didn't have any reason to think that any of this would happen because of just the general nature of our conversations leading up to this. And the broker did not want to pay me a tow-new charge. So a tow-new charge is a truck unused. So if the broker calls a truck out and the truck arrives and the shipper says, no, we're not going to ship this today, as it turns out we need to cancel this after the truck's already there, there's a fee for that, and it's called a tow-new. But my rate confirmation did not specify the tow-new rate. Now, the typical industry rate for a tow-new is $250, but that rate is from when fuel is a lot cheaper. So with higher fuel, you would think that rate should go up, but it just hasn't. And also, you know, I've wasted 4 hours of my day on this, and I don't have a specified tow-new rate, and the broker doesn't want to pay me a tow-new at all. And I told him, I said, look, man, that's not going to work. I will go, you know, find some way to recover this, either on principle or in money. But one way or another, you're coming out of your pocket on this deal, especially since you rushed me. So I tell him, I said, look, the only things I can think to do to cover myself, to make sure that I'm paid, is going in, telling the shipper what's going on, and then possibly seeking, you know, to make a claim on your bond. And the broker just lost his mind, started screaming at me, freaking out. And I get it. You know, they don't want this to happen because it makes them look bad to their customer, right? But at the end of the day, as a carrier, I don't really have any responsibility to that broker. I have a responsibility to that shipper. It's that shipper's items that were going on my truck, and that shipper needs to know if they're working with a broker that doesn't treat their trucks correctly, because, you know, you get a broker that treats trucks poorly. You know, I won't get into too much detail, but I've had that happen before on stuff that I've shipped. I shipped a $100,000 excavator with a broker before. That broker was treating the truck driver badly, and then the truck driver goes and doesn't want to release the excavator. It turned into a whole thing, right? And that doesn't mean that the truck driver was in the right, but the broker also played a big role in that. And so I was always very cautious about working with brokers that didn't treat truck drivers right. And I always preferred to work directly with truck drivers anyways. But, you know, so as a former shipper myself, I know I would have wanted to know if something like this was going on in relation to a shipment that I had. It's thousands of dollars that I'm shipping around. worth of product. It's time sensitive. It's really important that it's handled with care by guys that are getting treated right. So I don't think that there's any ethical issue, because again, the broker is not my real customer. The shipper is. The broker's just in the middle. So I told him, I said, look, if we can't get this rectified, I'm going to have to tell the shipper I'm still sitting here. I'm just going to have to walk in the office and tell them what's going on, and keep them abreast of the situation. Because another thing is I also, as a carrier, may have to seek payment directly from the shipper if the broker doesn't pay. That can happen too. So as I tell him all this, he starts freaking out, screaming, losing his mind, just totally unprofessional. And I finally hit the brakes on the whole thing. I said, listen, man, I am not going to get talked to like this. I need to talk to your supervisor. And he goes and he says, well, my supervisor's going to tell you the same thing. Well, he had offered me at this point $250, which, again, that's the standard industry rate. That's up from the $0 he was offering me before. But given the fact that I went out of my way for his load, I had devoted half a day to this. And I just didn't feel like $250 covered it, because now also, because they aren't holding up their end, it's going to force me to deadhead to Pennsylvania now, because I don't have time to book another load. So I'm going to have to come out of my pocket several $100s in fuel, even with the $250 TONU charge. That helps, but it doesn't cover it. And meanwhile, the broker's argument is, well, our contract with the shipper is only a $250 TONU charge. And I said to him, I get that, but your problem is that, you as a broker, you never take a hit. I'm the one that always has to take a hit. You get to make hay when the sun shines, but when it all goes bad and when something goes wrong, you throw your hands up and you're not responsible for anything. I mean, these brokers often don't even have insurance. They have a bond, but a bond is not insurance, right? But that's how little risk, how little responsibility, sorry, my light keeps turning itself off. How little risk and responsibility these brokers take. They don't even have even the basic amount of responsibility when it comes to this. That wasn't going to work for me. If the broker hadn't rushed me out there, hadn't called me repeatedly, hadn't made me feel super confident that I was going to get loaded, maybe I would take my lumps. But, I was like, no, that's not going to work, man. I wanted $500. And I felt like that was really fair, considering that I had sat there for 2 hours before I was even told that they weren't going to load me. If I'd showed up and they said, hey, no, there was a mistake, we're not going to load you, I would have been upset, but I probably would have taken $250. But if you're going to sit me there for 2 hours, you're going to have to pay me for my time sitting there too. I said, so $250 isn't going to work. I really need $500. And he just would not do it. And I said, well, then let me talk to your supervisor about it. And he told me, well, my supervisor's going to tell you the same thing. And I said, well, my real problem is the professionalism that I'm hearing here. What the way you're talking to me is my issue more than even what the rate is. I need to talk to your supervisor about it. And then he tried to fight me about sending me to a supervisor. It was a whole thing. So finally, I get through to the supervisor. Supervisor's a super nice, cool guy. I have no problems with the guy. And I could kind of tell from the way he was talking, I could tell from the way he was talking that he could hear all of the conversation, and also kind of agreed that it wasn't real professional on the part of the broker I was dealing with. And, he was very apologetic, all the things you expect. And I said, that's fine, man. I said, look, I just want more than $250. Fuel is way higher than what it was when that standard rate was created. We need to do a little bit better than that, because this is an uncommon situation as well. And he goes, yeah, no, I get that completely. He goes, I'm going to go talk to my supervisor and try and get you $500. I can at least get you to $450. And I said, okay, I'm not going to sweat $50. $450 is fine. And so he sends me over a rate confirmation for $450 for a TONU charge. Now the rate confirmation is kind of broken up into a couple of pieces, but the primary thing, But the main thing about the rate confirmation is that it first lists a standard tow new charge of $250, and then an additional $200 listed as driver demand. But it doesn't matter how you list it, it's in the rate confirmation. That's a legal document that was sent to me. So they sent that over to me. It was all agreed to, all well and fine. I sold that invoice to a non-recourse factoring company, which is another whole thing that I'm not going to get into here. But long story short, with a non-recourse factoring company, they're supposed to buy the invoice for, in my case, 2% of the face value, 98% of the face value. They take 2%. And for that, I get paid the same day, and they accept all of the collection activity. They go and they fight these brokers for the money. So I sold it like immediately that day and got paid my $450 minus the 2%. And didn't really think anything about it. I was a little upset that I had to deadhead to Pennsylvania, but I lived to fight on another day. So fast forward about a week later, and I get an email. And it's like a standardized email that just says that there was a claim, a damage claim on the load that I was supposed to have picked up, but I never did because I got a tow new charge. And they wanted me to respond to this claim of damage on that load. And I was very confused by this because that load never made it onto my trailer. So how could I have damaged it? And I thought that maybe they had found somebody else to pick it up on the next day. I just thought that they made a mistake. Like, they thought maybe I was the one that hauled it, even though they had to find a different driver. And so I just emailed them back, just as if it were just a normal mistake. I didn't make a big deal out of it, nothing like that. And didn't hear anything back for like another week, almost. Actually, it might have been over a week that I didn't hear nothing back. And then today, I'm sitting at home and I'm looking, and I got another email. And let me read this email right now. Reminder: the things that I said to the guy were that I would, one, tell their shipper about what's going on, just tell them the situation straight up. And two, that I would seek their bond to pay me on this tow new charge. Doesn't mean that I'd be successful, but I told him I would do that and possibly take some legal action in court was implied, right? These are not threats against his life. These are not, I'm coming to your house or nothing like that. These are standard things when you're having a dispute about money with another person. And if you can't make those kind of threats when somebody owes you money, then, what can you do? I don't even know, but keep these facts in mind as we talk about this. So read you the first email. So it reads, good morning. I am reaching out in regards to order blah, 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 blah. It's an order number. I've attached the signed rate confirmation that states, quote, in the event of a claim, payment for this load will be placed on hold and/or applied to the claim. Well, there is no claim because I never pulled the load. It was a tow new charge. It continues. Due to Talon Machinery LLC demanding additional pay and threatening us if we didn't comply, we issued the attached rate confirmation, quote, under duress. We will be applying a deduction in the amount of $200 to your invoice. The remaining $250 for truck called for not used will be released and remitted to you. We are now considering this matter closed. Please let us know if you have any questions. Okay. So there's a lot to unpack in that short paragraph, but demanding additional pay, you can demand anything, but you don't cross into like putting somebody under duress unless you're demanding it under the threat of like some violence or criminal action, right? There's nothing criminal about me going and telling their customer what is going on. There's nothing criminal about me taking them to court because I believe that I haven't been paid properly.
that is a totally legal thing to do, and it would be up to the court to decide who's right and who's wrong. And I'm not saying that I would have been 100% right, but I definitely can do that. That's a thing that's afforded to me, and without any, issues. That'd be the thing recommended. Like, don't go and tell people you're going to shoot them. Tell them you're going to take them to court. That is the proper way to try and apply pressure in a legal way. That's why the courts exist, as a stopgap to let people know, hey, you can't just screw over everybody that you have agreements with. There's no anything illegal that I've done here. I may not have been right in seeking another $200, but they agreed to it. They sent me a rate confirmation. So after that point, whether or not I was right up until the point, whether or not I was in the right up until the point that they agreed to it in writing in a rate confirmation, is irrelevant, because they agreed to it. If I had told them I wanted $10,000, they didn't have to agree to it. They could have fought it out in court. That would have been the right thing to do if they didn't want to pay it. But if they sent me a rate confirmation for $10,000, I am now legally entitled to that $10,000. Now, if I went to their office and, held a gun to somebody's head and they made that, then yeah, they would be under duress. If I told them I was going to show up at their office and hold a gun to their head, then they probably maybe could say they're under duress. Of course, that's a whole other thing, because they still have to, prove that they believe that I was actually going to do it, which they're based in, I think, like Wisconsin, and I'm in Virginia, so I don't know, maybe, I guess. I mean, I could drive there and do that, but, it has to be, they have to actually believe that their life or they're physically in danger. None of this makes any sense, right? And that's pretty much my response. So I'll read you my response. So I said, Raquel, the original TONU RateCon issue does not contain the language, quote, under duress. It's important, because if they were under duress and they were only doing it because they're under duress, they could have notated that somewhere. They took the time to notate that the $200 was my demand, my driver demand. But they never said that they never put in writing anywhere that they were under duress when they did it. So, and furthermore, my threatening legal action in informing the customer of your poor business practices does not meet the legal definition of duress, nor would it meet the legal definition of slander, since that does not imply any physical harm against your staff. And slander is a form of defamation. Defamation, by definition, is when somebody says something untrue that causes harm to you. Right? So you can't just say that because somebody said something negative about you that you've been defamed. They have to say something that is both negative, is not true, and causes you financial harm, right? So if I went in there and I made up stuff about this company to their customer, then yeah, they could, say that was defamation, because it caused, that customer to no longer do business with them or do less business with them, right? But then that, if I only said it to that one customer, then they would still have to show that customer stopped doing business with them too. That'd be another thing altogether. And I went on to go ahead and quote the legal definitions of these things, like word for word. Like, I copied and pasted this, all right? The legal definition of duress is constraint illegally exercised to force someone to perform an act. You can administer constraint, right, to try and force somebody to perform an act, sign a contract, whatever. But the key difference is whether or not that it was something illegally exercised, right? If you hold a gun to somebody's head, that's illegal. If you tell them, if you don't sign this contract, you can't move into your new apartment because it's a lease, you can't say that the people signed the lease under duress because they thought they were going to be homeless, because it's not illegal to prevent them from moving in if they don't sign the contract. It's not illegal for me to say I'm going to take you to court. Okay? That's not duress. I mean, you might have felt like the word duress, but not but you never were under the legal defined version of duress, right? You could have felt stress. You could have felt a lot of different ways about it, but duress is not one of the things from a legal standpoint that they were under. Then I went on to copy and paste the legal definition of slander. So slander is the action or crime of making a false spoken statement damaging to a person's reputation, or in this case it would be a company's reputation, would still apply. Okay, so libel is like publishing a written defamatory statement. Slander is a spoken defamatory statement, right? So they're all under the same umbrella term, defamation, right? And so yeah, I would have damaged their reputation, right? But they would have had to prove that there was damage, right? And they would have to prove that what I said was false. And I never said anything, but I never claimed that I was going to go and make something up. And if I had gone there, I would not have made anything up. I would have told them straight up, just like I'm telling you guys now. I'm totally willing to admit that maybe I wasn't entitled to more than $250 in the first place, but I became entitled to the $450 when they sent me a written contract saying that they were giving me $450. That's when I became entitled to that. Anything before that point, right, wrong, or otherwise, is irrelevant. So, you know, I don't get these people. Like, they just don't want to pay me this. Like, I'm not going to sweat $200, but it's just annoying, right? And then so I said, furthermore, the fact that your staff bargained with me on the TONU rate for my original demand of $500 down to $450 supports the argument that this agreement was not made under duress, right? If you're under duress, it means that you're in fear. You feel some fear to not comply, right? If you were truly in fear to the point that you were under duress, you would not bargain with the person who is putting you under duress. You would just do whatever they want to shut them up and get them out of your face, right? Could you imagine like some situation where you're under duress, where you're bargaining with the guy, like you're being held hostage, and the guy says, hey, get on the floor. And you say, okay, what if I just get down on my knees? I don't really want to get on the floor. You know, I know you get a gun pointed at my face, and I'm really, really scared, but the floor is real dirty. Do I have to get on the floor? Let's meet in the middle here. No, you would just get on the floor, okay? Because you're under duress. And then I kind of finished this all up. I said, you can choose not to remit payment, but it would serve you well to know that your TONU invoice has been sold to a non-recourse factoring company, who I am sure will take legal measures to collect payment on this matter, including making a claim against your bond and reporting against your credit. So a broker's bond and their credit is their whole livelihood, right? If a broker isn't paying their bills, the factoring companies all have credit reports, and that's how they decide whether or not that broker can be eligible for factoring. And if a broker is not eligible to be factored, it's going to make it much more difficult for that broker to get trucks to take their loads. So, you know, me as a truck driver, I'm going to go and I'm looking for loads. The first thing I'm going to look at is their credit rating, because I want to know, one, am I going to get paid? And two, will my factoring company even buy their invoice? So if the lower their credit rating goes, the harder it is for them to get trucks. And then the only other way that they can get trucks is by offering a higher rate to compensate for that difference, right? So it's going to be direct money out of their pocket, because a broker with like a stellar credit rating, like we're talking like a big time name, like for instance Total Quality Logistics, TQL, they kind of suck to work with. I haven't even done any loads for them because their rates are so low, but they can get people to take those low rates because they can literally just work with anybody. Everybody knows they're going to get paid. And any factoring company will work with TQL, right? So they don't have to be trying to just get anybody to take it. Like, that's, the broker finding somebody to ship something with them is only half the work. They still got to find a truck to move it. And, you know, if your credit rating goes too low, you won't be able to get the trucks anymore. And that's a real risk for them in this situation, because now a factoring company owns this invoice, not just a regular guy like me. And that factoring company's gonna go and report that to their credit. They're gonna lose their ability to be factored, not with just the company I use, but most any factoring company once it reports. And so I said, ultimately, it doesn't matter to me what choice you make, since I have already been paid. But it will hurt you. It will almost certainly cost you more than $200 in legal fees and loss of revenue. And it definitely will. I mean, it doesn't take much to add up to $200. It would be way better for them to, rather than, even on my level, right? I am just one truck, right? One company, right? You think about, like, okay, there are times, like in this situation here, I was the only choice they had. You know, so every time they alienate a guy like me, they think I'm small potatoes, they're gonna save $200 here. It's like, well, no, not really. Like, this is just one more truck you can't use now. This is just one more factoring company you can't use. I mean, this is all bad. But at the end of the day, thank God I was factored, right? Because I wouldn't be getting paid if I wasn't, right? And what would I do now here 2 weeks later after all this? So these are all things to keep in mind. I would say I went ahead and I posted this to Facebook on a couple of groups just to let other people know. And the key is we got to communicate with each other. Like, at the end, like, on some level we're all competing with each other, but on another level, like, we also have a common enemy, and that's these brokers are getting in the middle. And it's okay to be a broker, but you've got to pay us correctly, right? When you're doing stuff like this, this is what gives all brokers a bad name. And so it's good for all of us in the community to know what's going on with each other, and to know situations. That way we can avoid stuff like this. So I'm going to tell you now, I would avoid working with ZMAC. Looking at the comments from other drivers that have worked with them in the past, it's kind of mixed reviews. At this point, their credit rating is only a C, which is not great. For me, my factoring company is non-recourse, and if they say that they'll factor it, it doesn't matter. I'm going to get paid. I don't care what their credit rating is. It's annoying that they're playing this game, but I didn't even ever have to respond to any of it. It was my choice because I wanted to try and get them to do the right thing, because I like my factoring company. I don't want my factoring company to have to fight with them any more than they have to. I want my factoring company and my relationship to be good. This whole thing is done on relationships. I'm not happy that, you know, this went bad. I thought after everything that went on, yeah, I wasn't real happy with the experience that I had, but I thought, you know, hey, after we cool down, maybe I can grab another load with them and we don't have to be upset with each other forever. But it looks like they're not going to let it go. So, sorry, this was a long video, but it's really important. I hope you guys got something good out of this. You learned something. Be paying attention to this kind of stuff. Join the Facebook groups that are relevant to the type of trucking you're doing, or just trucking in general. That way, as we kind of get stuff like this tribal knowledge that we have as drivers can kind of be passed around really well. And yes, we all compete with each other a little bit, but ultimately this is, you know, where we can come together. We can definitely look out for each other and avoid these bad brokers. So if you like this video, hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more, subscribe for more. Tomorrow, I'm going to get it on video. I'm going to be taking my first oversized load. It's a load of roof trusses. So subscribe so you can see that, and I'll catch everybody in the next one.